Hello everyone, today we're looking at our last lesson in our Cruel Sport Unit 6. For leisure, this is all about fox hunting and a little bit about animal rights. Main objective today is to understand the history behind fox hunting and to debate whether or not it should be legal in England today. So fox hunting, we can see in the image on the right hand side here, it's characterized by a few very specific things. So one is the fox hunting hounds. Specially bred dogs that have a very powerful sense of smell, and they're used to chase down the foxes and to flush them out. Then we have the hunters who wear these red coats and go on horseback as well. Sometimes people will go fox hunting using a four-wheeled all-terrain vehicle, but horses are very much so the traditional method of fox hunting. On the left, we can see a protest from London, and this was when Theresa May was Prime Minister a few years ago. There was a lot of debate over whether fox hunting should be reintroduced as legal under the law or kept illegal as it had been in the past. So the general history of fox hunting, the earliest we know of is in 1524. There were people who were breeding dogs specifically for the purpose of hunting foxes. The reason they were doing this is because foxes were seen as a pest, for farmers especially. Now, foxes are quite destructive and they do kill quite indiscriminately. So if a fox is hungry, it will go and kill one sheep, but it might kill two or three in the moment, even though it's not going to eat all those three sheep at once. Farmers decided the best way to control the fox population was to hunt them, and that would hopefully discourage them from coming onto their farms, eating their food, or killing their flocks of sheep, or even chickens in some cases. So these dogs were trained very specifically to hunt, and in the late 17th century, it turned into a bit of a sport. People realized this is kind of a fun afternoon out. It's a little bit of a challenge, but it's also a nice social event. And in the late 1600s, it started to become quite an influential sport in England. There's been a lot of different views about fox hunting, whether or not it should be allowed, and these started around 1950, 1960, when there was a big push towards animal rights in the UK. We've got two arguments here. So we have in favor on the left, and we have against fox hunting on the right. And the points will come up that are kind of counterpoints of one another. So we'll just see two appear at the same time, and then we'll try to make our own decision on what our opinion is. Should fox hunting be allowed, or should fox hunting remain illegal? So the first point for people who are in favor of fox hunting say that foxes are pests, and this is the best way to control their numbers. Now, people who are against would say that fox hunting isn't pest control, it's a blood sport. Foxes kill indiscriminately, and this would help to protect lambs and chickens. Now, people would also argue that foxes kill rabbits, which do damage crops. It's been estimated that one fox can save a farmer about 900 pounds in a given year. So if you don't kill the foxes, they will kill the other pests that damage the crops for the farmer. Fox hunting is a natural way of conserving the countryside, but wildlife areas are quite damaged. And if you go back to that original image that we saw with the horses and the dogs, all trampling through the countryside is quite a destructive thing to do. Some people say that the foxes are killed swiftly if they're in a trap or if they're poisoned, that their death can be quite long and agonizing. And others would argue that when foxes are hunted by a pack of dogs, they're terrified. And that's certainly not a quick and painless death by any means. Fox hunting is known as a traditional sport, and if banned, it would lead to the loss of many jobs, and large packs of hounds would have to be destroyed. The reason that these dogs would have to be destroyed, as they so claim, is because the dogs are specifically bred to hunt, and that's what they want to do intrinsically. And the counter argument is you can, instead of hunt foxes, you can do what's known as drag hunting. You send a human up with a all-terrain vehicle and they drag essentially the scent of a fox through the forest, and then the dogs then chase that and hunt that. So the dogs still get to do the thing that they're trained to do, but there are no foxes killed in the process. Each year, about 15 to 20,000 foxes are killed by hunting, and this helps to control its numbers. But upwards of 100,000 are killed simply on the roads by traffic. Nobody has the right to ban a sport. It's an issue of civil liberties, but killing an animal for sport should not be allowed. And lastly, foxes have a chance of survival when they're being hunted. People would argue that if there's a humans on horseback, there's no possible way that a fox can outrun them. So we can see there are two columns here in favor of fox hunting and against fox hunting. Take a moment to pause the screen, have a look, and just try to gauge what your opinion would be based on the evidence that you see in front of you. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and press play and continue with the lesson. So the results from the modern debate. So the debate on fox hunting, it led to the government to look into this in 1999, chaired by a man named Lord Burns. So it was called the Burns Inquiry, and he stated that hunting with dogs seriously compromises the welfare of foxes, but he never said whether it should be banned in the UK. And this was a bit frustrating for people because they wanted a clear-cut answer. They wanted to be told fox hunting is legal or fox hunting is not legal. So the government introduced what's called an options bill, and this was given to both houses in Parliament, so that's the House of Commons and the House of Lords, and this was to discuss whether or not the sport should be banned or be the subject to a license hunting or kind of self-regulation. And what this license hunting means is if you wanted to go fox hunting, you could apply for a special permit that would allow you to do so. There would be an amount of foxes that you are allowed to hunt, an amount of dogs you are allowed to have, and it would be very heavily regulated. Now, the Hunting Act in November of 2004, it banned the hunting with dogs in England and Wales, and it took effect from February of 2005. It doesn't mean you couldn't hunt a fox. You still could do so, but you could not hunt a fox with dogs. Despite the ban, hunts have seen an increase in membership, and a lot of anti-hunting campaigners have claimed that hunts continue to flaunt the law. Just 2 years ago, there was a activist group just north of High Wycombe, actually, who set up some very special little GoPros that have a motion sensing camera. And they put these in the forest, and they actually caught people who were fox hunting not far from our local area. So using dogs to hunt foxes, it's illegal in England. However, it's legal to use two dogs to flush a fox out of hiding. So the modern debate is still asking whether or not this should be legal. And as you can see, it's quite unclear as to what the law really is. It says you're not allowed to hunt with dogs in England and Wales, but you are allowed to use two dogs to flush a fox out of hiding. It's difficult for people to understand whether or not fox hunting is truly legal or not, because as we can see, the law is quite unclear on the topic. So looking at animal rights and welfare groups in the 21st century. So the League Against Cruel Sports is the leading anti-hunting campaign group. They have a network of a lot of wildlife sanctuaries that try to make sure animals are kept safe and they aren't going to be hunted, especially hunted unfairly. The Animal Liberation Front is a group of anonymous individuals and groups. They carry out direct action by damaging property of companies that they argue are abusing animals. So, for example, if there was a group of people who were known to be going out fox hunting, the Animal Liberation Front, they might go and take all the petrol out of their all-terrain vehicles, just to disrupt their ability to go on those hunts. So people for the ethical treatment of animals, you might have heard of PETA before. It's one of the largest animal charities and organizations. It's got nearly 1 million members now. Its main focus is on 4 areas. So it looks at factory farms, labs, the fur trade, and the entertainment industry, and keeping animals safe in those industries. Animal aid campaigns peacefully against all forms of animal abuse. They carry out a lot of undercover investigations in order to raise awareness to the media. They're another group that will use a lot of hidden cameras to try and find people who are abusing animals or hunting illegally. And the last one is the RSPCA, a registered charity of 300 officers they have, and they have 140 service animals. And these dogs will go around with the uniformed officers, try and find animals that are perhaps being abused, and take those people who are abusing the animals and charge them in the court of law. Time for bonus facts. So we go to another picture of fox hunting. So we're quite familiar with the hounds, the horses, and the hunters. And we did talk about how it's traditional to wear a red coat, but it's not called a red coat. So the actual name for these is not red. If you're going fox hunting, you would put on your what they call pinks. Don't know why they call it pink, it's clearly red, so maybe fox hunters are colorblind. A hound's sense of smell is 40 times greater than ours. So within the nose of a hound, they have approximately 40 times more smell receptors than we as humans do. And that means they're really good at picking up the scent of an animal and being able to track it and trace it. So that's it for today. Have a look at the quiz on Show My Homework and complete any other tasks set by your teacher.